What's up, Gems? Hope you're doing well out there. Hope you're having a productive week. Thanks for joining in my channel. Listen, got a really special day today, man. It has been a year since the release of my first book, Life is Just. So grateful to see it come around as the anniversary. It's a really special day for me, a really special time for me because, man, there was a lot that led up to, the process of writing the book, the process of publishing the book, and then the process of distributing the book, sharing it, putting myself out there for thousands of people to absorb and kind of critique. A huge growth process for me, a huge push out my comfort zone. If you have been rocking with me for a while, you hear me use that term all the time. Push out of the comfort zone, stepping out of my comfort zone, all these things. It's because it's something that I continuously try to do on a daily basis, on a every moment basis, because I feel like that is the only way you are going to reach success. You have to have things that you're willing to deal with and that you're willing to put yourself into that are going to be able to push you farther than you would on your own. When I first got into the gym super heavy, I had to, one of my boys, he's a really big gym rat, and this dude is a freaking animal. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen me post some of his stories on my story. The dude is just a animal. I wanted to see results. I wanted to see things. I wanted to push myself and get the body that I've never had before. So I ended up reaching out to him. We ended up linking up, and I started working out with him for the rest of the year. So we're going on 8-9 months right now at the least. And yeah, man, and I mean, I see the results like crazy. So you have to make sure you're putting yourself around the right people as well. You also need to make sure you're putting yourself in the right situations that are going to push you farther than you really want to be pushed a lot of times. Here, nonetheless, today I'm here to talk about the 3 things that I learned from writing my book. First and foremost, writing in general. I talk about this a lot. You've seen previous vlogs about me talking about journaling. Truth be told, the book would never have happened if I had not started journaling first. To be completely honest, when I first got started, it was only a journal. I wasn't considering writing a book. I knew at some point I wanted to write a book, but I wasn't super confident in my writing. I wasn't super confident that I knew. I mean, who knows how to just write a book? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. It's a weird process. It wasn't like I had a certain topic that I wanted to discuss or talk about or share. But the more I wrote, the more I started getting comfortable with writing. The more I was like, damn, this is actually pretty good. Then I was like, oh man, somebody needs to see this. Somebody needs to hear this. This might be something that affects or could possibly help someone else. Number 1, writing helps you learn so much about yourself. Now, there's 2 different ways that it does that. So when we're thinking about the first way, number one thing I can recall, I remember most of my book was written. I took a trip to Arizona. I stayed out there for about 3 or 4 months, just like wanted to lock in complete solitude and just work as much as I could on this thing. When I decided I wanted to write a book, I was like, look, I want to get in a place where there's going to be the least amount of distractions, and I want to be able to like really double down on this thing. So the one thing I do remember happening sometimes, I wake up, I get a workout in, and then I take a shower, get some breakfast, I sit down on the couch or the table, and I pull out my laptop. And this was one of those things where I used to just sit down at my computer, and I would literally not have anything to talk about sometimes. Like, I would feel like, what am I gonna say? Like, I don't have anything to share. So what I would do, even on days like that, I would sit and I would just type the first things that come to my head. The first things, maybe I want to talk about, the breakfast that I had. Maybe I want to talk about the fact that I'm really on the other side of the country, away from my family, away from everything that's familiar to me, in a unfamiliar place, just out here by myself pretty much. I had a friend there, but other than that, it was just me by myself. And so it would just be about anything. And so sometimes I'd close my eyes and I just type. Yeah, I'm not really sure what I want to talk about today. I just woke up, got a little workout in, feeling kind of tired, feeling like, a little homesick, but Arizona's beautiful, and the weather is amazing. It's a little hot, but the humidity is not here like it is in the South, so the dry heat definitely makes or plays a bigger, you know, it's just a different thing. I would just be writing shit. But eventually when it's about a practice, about a routine of doing it over and over again, because you're not gonna, the chances are, if you want to start writing a book, I would say most of the stuff that you decide to write, you're not gonna share. Like, I think there's like a 1% of everything that you really decide to put out there to the world, because that's the stuff that you like the most. Because, you know, in a routine, you know, that's why athletes practice so much, is because you practice so that the games are easy. You know what I'm saying? Like, the games are when you're ready to perform, because you've done it so many times. You've practiced those same shots, those same plays, those same defensive sets all the time, so that you are prepared for the game. So it's a lot like that. It's practice when it comes to writing. But the one thing I really remember the most was sometimes I would be writing about something I was super passionate about. This would be one of those days where I was like in the moment, I was like, you know, in my zone, writing about, you know, I knew what I was writing about, and I was like into it heavy. I remember sometimes I'd be writing about something and I'd be feeling strongly about it. Maybe it would be about like my relationship with my brother or something like that. And I remember stopping sometimes in them, like listening to myself and what I'm saying, and I would be like, look how you sound right now. Like, for example, I might have been talking about how, you know, I don't necessarily agree with, you know, all my brother's actions when it comes to his disposition when it comes to my parents, right? And I would be so in it, like I would be just plucking away. I'm like in my head, I'm just coming from my soul. And then all of a sudden, I would be being super critical of him. And then all of a sudden I would stop and be like, look how you sound right now. Like, look at you. Like, why are you so passionate about this? Like, why is you're talking about someone else. This is something that you cannot control, but so much. This is another grown man you're talking about. He has the right to be able to live his life the way he wants to, treat people the way he wants to, move around like he wants to. What are you doing? But these are things that I had to come to terms with, and I wouldn't have been able to come to terms with if it wasn't for me going that deep into my soul and figuring out, you know, kind of rewiring some things from the jump. And so after that, there was one chapter in particular where the energy from it is very critical. You know, I wrote it to where it was almost like I wasn't trying to like attack, but it was very, you understood, okay, there's some feelings here. There's some feelings that are not, you know, he's not happy about, you know. And then literally a couple of days later, I remember I came back and I you know, I've been thinking about it for the last few days. I sat down at the table and I wrote again, and I wrote a chapter about like how ridiculous I felt that I was being so judgmental over my younger brother, somebody I love, and like, this is my best friend. And you know, I was just attacking him. And I can imagine if that's what I was feeling, I can only imagine how I was treating him, even subconsciously. And so I had to really get myself together, like, you need to check yourself, because I can imagine if you think he's like that, how do you think you're coming off to him? Like, and he doesn't deserve that. This is your problem. This is not his problem. This is your problem. And so that chapter was definitely me falling back like, wow, I feel like an asshole. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't have been able to come to that conclusion without, you know, really tapping into another level of emotion, of vulnerability. And you know, I think my brother and our relationship, you know, got so much better after that. Just, I mean, cause he, you know, obviously read it, but like, you know, I think there was just something that clicked off in my head that I hadn't really understood or really got a chance to think about. And it wouldn't have happened that way if it wasn't for, you know, writing my book. Number 2, your perspective is like great music. It is timeless. Do you hear that? That's a bar. Like, first of all, let's sit back and just think about that for a second. Your perspective, your viewpoint is like great music. It's timeless. Now, granted, timeless is a very relative word, okay? Timeless is something that everybody thinks they have an idea of what timeless is, but the best part about it is everyone's definition of timeless is different. Everybody has their own version of timeless. When you think about great music, you know, I think Isley Brothers, what's the song? Living for the love of you. That's a timeless joint. You heard me singing. You heard the vocals a little bit. Just a little bit. That's a timeless song to me. But to somebody else, it may not be. So, you know what I'm saying? To you, it is. So when you go back and when you read those things that you shared or those things that you wrote, however long ago, it's gonna bring back like a feeling of nostalgia. You remember, you think about your favorite song from your childhood. When you listen to that song, it brings back all of these memories, all of these feelings, these warm feelings, maybe not so warm feelings, but it brings back a lot of feels for you because it hits at a place because you remember the time, you remember a certain time, and it just takes you back to that same moment or to those same moments. And that's a beautiful thing right there. And that's only something that art can do. It's only something that, you know, something that really resonates with you can do. So when you look back at the stuff that you wrote 5-10 years ago, just think about that for a second. You know, reading some of the stuff that I wrote in the book, which I don't really read my book a lot. I don't really read it because, you know, I try to read something that I'm going to like. I like reading new stuff, and like my book, you know, I wrote it. It means a lot to me, but you know, I think in a few years it may mean something more. But right now it's a little too close to home, and it's like I'm super critical over my stuff anyway. So there, you know, I would be just chopping away at it if I decided to read it again. I just know how I go with a lot of my art and a lot of the things I make. But when I get a chance to sit back and read it again, you know what I'm saying? There are a lot of things I know for a fact that I wrote about that I don't necessarily even agree with anymore. And it's only been a year. So you can imagine 5-10 years from now, there'll be so many things that I'll be able to look back on and be like, damn, like I was really young and I was really in my feelings. I was really like, you know, I was just in a different space, but I will remember, even if I was right or wrong is really it's irrelevant to this, but I'll be able to say, man, this is what I was going through right then, and that's why I was feeling that way. You know, I could see that, you know, I know what space I was in during that time. So there's beauty in that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of beauty in that. Number 3, documenting your process is vital. You think about, again, we're thinking about 10, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, hell, even 50, 60 years from now. Imagine your kids being able to pick up a book or pick up a piece of art, something that you created, and show it to their friends, show it to their other family members, show it to their kids. Imagine that, your grandkids picking up your book and saying, my grandmother wrote this before I was born. Now imagine someone else's grandkids doing that. Imagine your book being on a bookshelf, you know, 100 years from now. I don't know if there'll be bookshelves in 100 years, but just imagine somebody picking up a book, finding your book on Amazon, finding it on Audible or whatever, and being able to get something from you without you even being there anymore. I think one of the most amazing things about art is that it's something that you can leave behind for other people to learn from. So it's almost like your spirit is still walking around on the planet. You're leaving your energy for someone else to pick up and get something from. And it's just the most amazing thing to think about to me. Make sure that you're documenting your process. It's so vital. 50 years from now, you can go back and look at these things and say, wow, this is what I did. This is where I started at. And look where I'm at now. Look what I've created. You have no idea how much of an impact you can have on this planet if you just decide to share. And this is a message that's bigger than just books. It's bigger than just writing your own book. This is about sharing yourself, sharing your thoughts, sharing your beliefs, sharing your values sharing your perspective. Like, you can do that in a way that's not judgmental. You don't have to force yourself on anybody. You know what I mean? Like, just put your stuff out there. But what it's gonna take, it's gonna take a lot of vulnerability. It's gonna take a lot of sacrifice. It's gonna take a lot of getting out of your own head and just releasing it to the universe. Trust and believe, it was a tough thing for me to do. I've been a creative my entire life. I started writing, like creative writing, poetry, and writing music when I was in the 4th, 5th grade. And it was terrible. It was horrible. But, you know, the more I did it, the better I got. And that's just what it comes down to. But I'm so grateful that I decided to start sharing, because for a long time, I'm talking 15, 20 years maybe, a long time I just was not comfortable sharing my art, sharing my perspective on anything. And, you know, so for me to be able to release this book, for me to be able to share it with so many people, it's definitely a blessing. And I'm just wanting to shoot out a message to you, letting you know that your perspective matters, your perspective is important, and there is something to be taken away from your view and from your spirit, from your mind. So don't be selfish and hold that thing in. If there are 1,000 people out there, there's at least one person that's gonna be able to take something from your story. At least one. And you think about how many people are walking this planet right now. So make sure that you're putting your stuff out there. This has been, you know, my 3 things. And have a wonderful week. Shouts out to you. God bless. Much love.